This is episode 28 called The Unjust Market with Alex Pollard. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Unplugged podcast presented by the Dance Plug Toronto. My name is Roy Bonozo and I'm a former dance studio manager turned dance entrepreneur and advocate. Each week we bring you a dance artist with stories of life experiences working in the industry and also opinions about current events and hot topics in the city. Before we hear from today's guest, here are a few updates that we would like to share. In the new year, the Dance Plug Toronto will be looking to generate revenue for the platform through various channels. Over the past year, we have provided free advertising to many local events, companies, and organizations. With the overwhelming amount of support and the exponential growth our platform has gained on both social media and the podcast, time and money have gone into making sure that your event is pushed out to a wider audience. The revenue generated on the platform will help with our costs to keep the platform running and will also allow us to continue to provide resources and services to dancers both locally and abroad. Also in the new year, we will be highlighting and recognizing dance artists both locally and abroad for their outstanding work and involvement in dance. More on this in a future episode. Want to advertise on the podcast? Reach thousands of dancers with your event, product, or service. Email us at thedanceplugto@gmail.com for more information. This week, we sat down with Alex Pollard. He is a dancer, choreographer, instructor, and studio owner from Mississauga, Ontario, who is well-versed in various styles of dance such as jazz funk, hip-hop, contemporary, heels, ballet, and more. Alex holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in dance from York University, but has also trained abroad at Alvin Ailey, Broadway Dance Center, and Perry Dance Capizio Center. His credits include the Indian International Film Awards, Striving Artist, the Juno Awards Concert, The Next Star, Mary Kay Cosmetics, and more. He has also been featured across many platforms between television and print. He has choreographed and casted for many events including Toronto Pride, In Situ Festival, the Mississauga Arts Council Gala, as well as choreographing for community events such as the Choreographers Ball, the Bazaar, and more. Most notably, Alex is the founder and owner of City Dance Center, Mississauga's hottest drop-in dance studio, and has recently founded the GTA's newest choreographer showcase, Arcadia. In his episode, we talk about the state of the market and the effect it has on its dancers, how it's beneficial to have a backup plan when it comes to your career as a dancer, and we also talk about his new adventure, the GTA's newest showcase, Arcadia. If you're ready, we're ready. So here's the Unjust Market with Alex Pollard. Recording from City Center Dance in Mississauga, Ontario. I am joined by Alex Pollard. How are you, man?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Why don't we start with the same question that I ask everybody on the show.
Okay.
And tell us a bit of your history. Like, how did you get into dance?
Okay, so I started dancing really late compared to my peers. I was 15, so that's pretty late to just like throw myself into dancing. So it's funny because so that's like grade 10, 15 years old. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I was at a performing arts high school, but I actually started out as a music major.
Nice.
I had been playing trumpet for like a few years and I auditioned and, got into that school as a music major. But then I always like had this fascination over dance. And like in the past, I'd wanted to dance, but my parents were like, no, you can't dance. Like you have to be a dentist, whatever, very traditional.
Yeah.
So I would like always creep on like the dancers and like peek into the dance room and see what they were doing. And like I'd like watch in on their ballet class sometimes. And then I taught myself a few things, like a double pirouette. I taught myself like a double stag jump, certain things like that.
Nice.
Yeah. And then I asked the teacher, Angela Capriccio, I was like, can I audition? And she's like, sure. So I thought she was just gonna like entertain my idea. So I choreographed this like really silly routine. It was to Adele's Someone Like You. And then I auditioned with it and she actually took me in because I was really eager to learn and grow and like was really ready to tackle dance. So that's kind of where it started for me. And she was an amazing teacher. Like she went to NYU for dance, and she danced in the Jose Limon Company. Mm. So she's like very legit. She also has trained a lot of people in this industry as well. So she's really great. shortly after that, I was looking at drop-in studios to go to, and the only one at the time was OIP Dance Center. So I ended up finding them on Google, and then I sent an email because I wanted to do like an internship. So the owner got back to me, and I met up with him for an interview. Well, not really an interview, just a meeting about what I'm going to be doing because they needed somebody anyways.
Yeah.
And so what I ended up doing for OIP was their social media. So that was really a turning point for me in the industry because that's where I met everybody. So I had started early 2011. No, not early. Late 2011 is when I came in. And I was doing the social media for them and just learning a lot about how a studio runs. And then, of course, in exchange, I got free classes. So all of my training I did there religiously. I was in Shavar's Wednesday class from beginner to advanced. Every Tuesday, I was in Angela's class, beginner to advanced. She was teaching hip hop at the time. So that's kind of where it started for me, was my training at OIP and my training at my high school. And then shortly after, I met Jojo Zolina, taking Leon Blackwood's class.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I was terrible in the class. I had to work my way up to Leon's, and I met Jojo. He was like, "You are so extra. Like, what's your name?" Yeah, because I had no sense of like hip hop. I didn't know what the pocket meant, didn't know what it was. So I was just like doing my thing. I mean, I've never been a hip hop dancer, so it was always like more jazz funk, more feminine style of dancing. So for me, that style was a little bit different. But I met Jojo, and then he liked my style of dancing, and he liked like what I put on. So we ended up working together a lot. He gave me quite a few of my first gigs.
Nice.
A lot of them, actually, a lot of big ones. And he trained me in heels. He trained me in jazz funk and whacking. I actually used to whack a lot. Not much anymore, but I did with him. And then after that, I met Neeks, Onika Powell. She is from Ruckus. So I took her dance hall class at OIP, and it was really nice. Like, we just got to talking, and she saw like one of my videos and was like, "Oh my gosh, I love your style of dance." Like, I was a heels piece that I'd put out, actually, with like Amanda May was in there. If you look at the video, it's still on YouTube. I mean, it's pretty bad, but you know, roots. It's all roots. So she had braids at the time too, and so anyways, Neeks had seen that, and she introduced me to Hollywood Jade. And so I just kept getting introduced by certain people, and Neeks also introduced me to Tasha Taz and Latoya Robinson. And Latoya is someone who also gave me another one of my first gigs, which was really fun. It was at the Markham Theater, I think, for a circus company. So it was really fun. And then after that, it was just a whirlwind, and I started working, and I continued my training, and it was a really good kickstart to my career, the OIP times.
Nice. I think you kind of delved into my next question was, who were individuals that played a key role. But I guess what I want to ask is, what did these particular individuals do that shaped you into the person that you are today? Like, what did you take from each of these OGs, right?
Yeah, it was, of course, their training first and foremost, and the opportunities they provided me, but also just like a work ethic. Like, I remember getting thrown into one of my first gigs with JoJo, even when I worked with Latoya, and it was just so different for me, and I was so inexperienced, and so just learning how to work and how they worked, I think was something that it kind of threw me off at first, and then I was able to adapt quickly and understand, and like, okay, this is how professional dancing is. And so a lot of the lessons that they taught me, and like the history of certain things, these are all things that I'm glad to know now, and I feel like isn't really being taught as much anymore, but I mean, that's what we're here for.
Nice. Okay, so earlier on, I guess you were talking about being a music major. So I do want to talk a bit about that. I think one thing, especially, I mean, I obviously don't take a lot of class anymore, but one thing that I've found when I've taken classes is that sometimes teachers don't know how to count. How much of that do you think, like, I guess being a music major yourself, obviously you would have had some sort of background or experience, at least being taught on how to count music. I guess what my next question is, like, how does counting really help with, creating choreography, or even just like as a student being able to learn that way, right?
Yeah. I think when I was training at OIP, not a lot of them counted.
Oh.
They did, but it was more so like the sound effects and the musicality that they would vocalize. And so that was really, really helpful. I think it's beneficial to do both.
Gotcha.
I think counting is great, but I also think if a teacher can help you understand the musicality, that actually helps you to hit what they're looking for you to hit. But counting is important, especially now that the recreational crowd is so big and a lot of people taking class are beginner dancers. They actually really need those counts. So as a teacher, you need to understand how to count, and you need to understand how to break those counts down. And you really need to know your music if you're going to be teaching people who have no idea or no concept of these things. Yeah.
Nice. Now you've taught before. You've also, I mean, you're still a student now.
Of
really.
course.
And, today you own a studio. Shout out City Center Dance. I do want to talk a little bit about that. So how much of the experience that you've had throughout the course of your career aided you in becoming, the studio owner that you are today, right? Like, especially going through, being a student, being a teacher, right? How much of that, has aided in your process, at least, right? Now providing a safe space for people to do it, and giving them opportunity.
I think my overall experience in the industry helped. I mean, the industry's not pretty. I personally didn't have it easy, actually. There was just like a lot of tension I found towards the end of when I ducked out, which was around 2015. And I just found it was weird. I was really trying to like vibe with people and, just meet genuinely good people. And I just felt there was so much competitiveness and like weird problems that I didn't really understand why they would happen. So I think that really gave me the thick skin to continue forward and not stop pursuing dance, and also open my studio. And then the other side of it is working at OIP. I learned a lot. I was there every day, like from open to close, and I would take class in between. But I wouldn't just see the classes and film the classes, but I would also do all the posting. So I would have to follow all the trends on Instagram. I grew that OIP Instagram to like have, I think it was like 20,000 followers.
Wow.
That was the one that I had started. And then I had left not shortly after. I left like a year after. I only did it for a year. And then they kind of closed down after that. But I think that experience also helped me because I got to see the back end of a studio and how it ran, and how I could do that for myself and do it, in a different kind of way.
What do you think are some misconceptions that maybe dancers have with regards to running a studio? I think we have to get we have to get into that, because
let's get into it.
I think that the platform. I mean, the Dance Plug is almost reaching year one, and you have been very vocal and active in participating in some of the discussions, right? And I think one of them was, like, we haven't had a question about the logistics behind running a studio, obviously, right? But because you are someone that owns their own studio, there's obviously some things that, dancers might not understand.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that for a bit.
I love this. Okay, I'm excited. So there's a lot of, like, misconception about how luxurious it is. I think a lot of people have said to me, like, oh, you're a business owner, it's so easy, or, it must be nice, you get to set your own hours, you're self-employed, you're this, you're that, you're rich. I'm like, no, actually none of those things. Like, honestly, it is the hardest thing I've ever done. It's a different kind of hustle. Like, me dancing professionally and gigging and choreographing for events and stuff, like that's one thing. That's one sort of hustle, which is exhausting. Studio hustle is, wow, it's different. And I wasn't prepared for it when I went into it. I kind of threw myself into it thinking I was ready, and I wasn't. And then I had to like figure it out real quick. But there's a lot. I mean, I've been on both ends of the spectrum. I've been employed by a studio, and now I employ teachers and a dance artist. But one thing is, I think people, I mean, talking about rates, I guess it's hard. Like we do have to set a certain rate because I have to plug my numbers, and the studio space doesn't just exist. It had to get there. It has to be paid for. There's a lot of factors that people don't realize. Like I have to pay rent, which is high in the GTA, not just in Mississauga, but in the Greater Toronto area. There's rent. There's all of my bills like heating, AC. Well, I don't have AC, but heating, electricity, water, phone, internet, miscellaneous. There's constant repairs that have to go on here.
Yeah.
I spent $800 fixing a leak. Like $800 for a leak, for example. We had a flood here, almost closed down. I was like ready to throw in the towel and be like, that's it, because that was $10,000 worth of damage that I had to fix and repair. And that was really hard to go through. But so there's a lot that goes on that the teachers don't see. You come, you teach your class and you leave, and that's all you know. And you'll kind of see the students that are here. But also the other side of it is like, for us at least, we have a lot of regulars, which is fantastic, but we don't have the same turnaround as another studio would have. So a lot of what we rely on is the regulars getting the class cards, but that just doesn't do enough because we would need X number of students every day if we were really trying to be booming, but we're just not there yet. And we're still new and we have no name yet. Well, now we do, but it still takes time. It still takes time to build. So I think people need to be patient if you're coming on board, just support the movement.
Yeah. Because you were an employee of a studio at one point, I guess before I get into that next question, did you ever teach drop-ins at another studio before?
I didn't. And what's funny is that I was asked in the past, and even like peers in the industry were like, so when are you going to start teaching drop-ins? And I was like, I'm not ready. Like, I knew that. I had the mind to know at the time that I was not ready. Even still, to be honest, I'm wanting to get rid of my slots when I can afford to, because I don't count as an expense. So that's why I teach for the most part.
Yeah.
Also, I do enjoy it. That's not the only reason. I enjoy it, and I feel like I do have a lot to share and a lot to teach. But I mean, yeah, I didn't want to at the time. I just didn't. I think it was after my choreographer's ball set in 2014. A good friend of mine, James, he's like, so when are you going to do your heels drop-ins? I was like, you know what? Not yet. I don't think I'm ready. And I was so young. I mean, I'm still young, but I was like really, really young then. So, no, I didn't teach drop-ins. I was teaching like recreational competitive students at different, complex studios and at schools and things like that. But drop-ins I knew was a different game because at the time when I was training hardcore, I mean, I still train, but when I was really, really training and really growing and looking to grow, you knew your place. I think that now people are just everyone is kind of teaching, and there's no boundary as to like who's the student, who's the teacher anymore. Whereas like before, my entire generation, I guess I'm middle generation, we were all in class together. I mean, we're all teaching now, which is great, but we were all in class together, and we would all be, in Leon's class, for example, or Shavar's class, or whoever's class it was, but we would all be in class, and we knew our place. And yeah, so I wouldn't have taught drop-ins. I wouldn't have dared to back then.
Speaking of drop-ins, I think we've already established that, I mean, you probably don't have this problem in Mississauga, obviously, but in Toronto, the market is saturated, right? So you have a lot of ripple effects that come with this saturation, and one of those things being not enough people are training anymore.
Yeah.
Right. What are your thoughts on, what the potential after effects, long lasting, at least long term, of that would be, right? You have so many teachers now that are teaching classes, but might not be actively learning as often as they should be anymore, right?
Right. Yeah, that's a tough one. What are the effects, you said, right?
Yeah. Or long-term effects.
Long-term
I think we're
effects.
seeing the short-term effects of it now,
Yeah.
right? But what are the long-term?
I think if that continues, I mean, it could be pretty damaging to just how seriously people take the industry here and how seriously they'll take our dancers and our choreographers. Like, and we won't be ready. None of us will be ready if something major were to happen in the city. It's just the reality. It's like if you're not training hard and if you're not pushing your boundaries every day, you won't be ready. So I think that we need to, or there needs to be somebody to really push for that quality training. And I think that's what I'm doing at City Center Dance. I have a lot of OGs here who aren't teaching anywhere else. But I'm lucky enough that I know them and have a relationship so that they will teach for me. And on the flip side, it's like, I just think that people are eager, which is great. It's great to be eager. I was once eager. But I had someone to put me in my place. So that's where it was for me. I remember someone saying to me, "Why are you putting a piece out? Why are you doing that?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh." I know it was just eagerness, I didn't consider myself a choreographer. I still don't. I've been paid for my choreography many times, but there's a certain level that I consider as a choreographer, and I'm not there yet. So I think it's just the expectations and the standard. No one's pushing for that. So I think that's why we're seeing what we're seeing now. And I don't really know what else can be done to help it, because I feel like, I know I'm personally advocating for the training and for the quality and for the OGs especially, but I'm outside of the city. So at the end of the day, it's like there's only so much I can do being in Mississauga, but I feel like there needs to be something in Toronto to really help with that. And I don't know what it will be, but the effects that it'll have, it won't be good if this continues. I don't think that it should. I hope there is change. I feel like there could be change. I think the OGs need to band together like they once did. And, that way everyone will know their place. Yeah.
I think that's an interesting point, and I have to offer a counter argument to that. Do you feel like, sometimes, I guess with OGs putting people, quote unquote, in their place, is probably the way to go about it, at least now, because I think generations obviously change, right? I think, especially with mental health being a huge thing. Obviously, it has some long-term effects with that, right? But I think you also make a good point. I think OGs, especially if they have that pull, that power, that weight, and they decide to go about it in a very more, in a more positive, encouraging way. It can definitely make changes.
Right? For sure. You know what? Like, it's interesting because you talk about mental health. So the reason I tapped out in 2015 was because of my mental health and because of how I was treated.
Yeah.
And so, I was put in my place, but it wasn't nice and it didn't make me feel good. So when I say that, I don't mean it in a bad way, because I'm a huge advocate for mental health and I've been through it myself, still dealing with it. But I think, there's definitely always an approach to be taken, because you're right, times have changed and people need to be adaptable. And I think that the OGs, they can be old school. And that's how it was back then. And that's kind of how we accepted things to be. But I always felt like it didn't need to be that way. So now I feel like they can definitely have a impact and they can definitely make change, and they can do it in a positive and encouraging way. I think if they came in with the approach of like, okay, not necessarily you shouldn't do that just because, I think if they were like, took it on more as like a mentor and a mentorship role, that could really make change, because then whoever they're looking to mentor would put themselves back into that student role, ready to learn as much as they could learn from their mentor. And I also had a mentor back then, AC Mensa. So she was really helpful. But yeah, I think they can do it in a positive way, and I think it should be done in that way, for sure.
First of all, before I get into this next question, thank you to those who submitted questions, first of all.
Oh, yeah.
And to those who sent a lot of very encouraging messages to Alex, which I'll read probably towards the end of the pod. But I think the next question that I have to ask is, with you taking drop-ins in Toronto and then you owning your own drop-in studio here in Mississauga, what are the differences?
Oh, yeah. Different market. Totally different market. I feel like Mississauga, it's very much recreational dancers. And that's great. I think that's awesome. Like at CCD, like there's such a positive family community vibe. And that's exactly what I wanted when I opened the studio, because I didn't necessarily feel that training and I didn't feel safe. So I just wanted a safe, positive, encouraging space. So I think that is first and foremost what we support and what we do and what we bring that's different than Toronto. Because I feel like why am I going to go take class and feel intimidated? Right? Or feel like I'm going to go to an audition every single class. I don't want to feel that way.
Yeah.
So I eliminated that from the jump here. Like I was like, that's not happening, because I remember how it made me feel. And I don't want anyone to feel that way. It's not a nice feeling, especially if you're looking to grow and take risks and learn. It's like, you can't do that in a space that's like that. But yeah, so definitely the recreational crowd is different. Also, I would say that, Mississauga is, I guess, a newer scene for dance. There wasn't really much out here beforehand, at least doing what we're doing. So I think that we've introduced what had already existed downtown, just a little bit closer for a lot of people, in Brampton, Oakville, Burlington, Mississauga, of course. So I think they're just getting familiarized with what it is and the concept and what we do. And so far people have been loving it. So I'm really glad. But yeah, there's not as many dancers out here that are actively pursuing dance. I find we'll still get a lot of strong dancers, but they're not necessarily pursuing dance in that way, which is still really nice because they still come here and they work hard and they had fun. Yeah. So yeah, that's the difference.
Would you say the market out here is more predominant towards competitive studios?
Absolutely. Yeah. There's a lot of comp rec studios out here in Mississauga. And so in turn, there's a lot of students, but we don't see, we do see them. We'll see them a lot in the summer and stuff, but I guess during the season, they're busy. Their schedules are crazy. So we don't really get to see them. So that's kind of what's going on right now here. But I find that a lot of parents are discovering what the industry is.
Yeah.
And if they want their kids to make it, I guess, they'll introduce them to studios like us. So I'll find a lot of, teenagers like 15, 16, even 14. They'll start coming here and they'll have left their studios, or even students that are in grade 12. Like they're part of our company. We have like a little CCD company thing. So they'll be part of that because they want something a little different. They want to perform. They want to get that experience and exposure. So I think there's a shift here. And I'm excited to be around for that shift.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great point you make. Me being a former studio manager, I've come across a lot of kids.
Yeah.
Just even talking to some of their parents, like they definitely see the benefit in, getting that outside training, or even just leaving the whole comp scene as a whole, right? One thing that I've noticed, at least for me, being the position that I'm in now, like I'm slowly starting to see what the comp life is like, right? And it's a huge difference when you try to compare the two between comp, rec, and then even industry type classes, right? When it came to opening your studio, why did you choose a drop-in model compared to a recreational / competitive model?
Yeah, good question. Well, for starters, there's so many comp rec studios here. So I was like, okay, you know what? That's really very filled in Mississauga. There's tons.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not going to do that. And so for me, I was like, okay, what do I know? What do I do? You know, I do all these things. I have all these things under my belt now. Let me take that and give back to my city. I think that's what I was looking to do because I was born and raised in Mississauga and I still live here, obviously. But having to go to Toronto to train, it wasn't ideal after a certain point. And even to gig, it was not fun. Like, I'd get home so late all the time and I'd have school the next day. So it wasn't fun. And like taking the GO train and then the subway and paying for class, like as a student, it was tight. It was really hard. And I had always wished there was something in Mississauga for me like this, but there wasn't. And when I finished my undergrad and I was working for a little bit, there still wasn't. And I was like, okay, I know enough people. I know people will support me. Let me do something. I have some money saved up, whatever. I took out a loan, did it the hard way. But I didn't, it wasn't easy. So I just wanted to bring something to Mississauga that wasn't there, and bring quality training, but also that could be in a safe space. So people here feel so challenged in their classes, but they also love it, you know, and the teachers are so nice here and they get to know the students and it's really personal and community based. And so I wanted that while still having the industry level, which is cool because we got that. So yeah, I've accomplished it.
Nice. I think you brought up a good point on that last answer when you talked about, you know, completing your undergrad. And I think one topic that we haven't discussed on the show yet is having a fallback plan in case all things fail, right?
Yeah.
And that's one thing I do want to talk about because the sad reality of it, and some people might not like what I'm about to say, is that dance might not be for everyone. Right? So there might be a point in time where you might have to sit down and really think what you want for yourself.
Yeah.
So, you know, on that note, like how has, you know, going to school, did you go to school for dance, first of all?
I did.
Okay.
I did.
I guess perhaps a natural route for you. But I guess let's talk about someone who might have a fallback and not take dance, I guess, in post-secondary. Right?
Okay.
Like, how great is it to have a fallback plan in the event that dance doesn't work out for you?
I think it's great. And I don't think it's a bad thing that you said that. It's realistic.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like as optimistic as you want to be and as passionate as you might want to be, it just might not work out. And that might not be your fault. Like for me, I know that I wasn't booking after a certain while. And it was just simply because people just already knew who they wanted to book. You know, there's a lot of nepotism that goes on. That's a sad reality. So I would be like, why didn't I get this? I felt like I was strong enough, you know, especially if it was something like heels or jazz funk. I'm like, that's my style. Those are my styles. So why wouldn't I get it? But it was a lot of nepotism. And so I already had seen it. It was happening to me. It's happened to other dancers that I know. But it's great to have a fallback plan. Like for me, I have a degree, so I can always go back to school, get my master's, go to teacher's college. I considered that actually before opening the studio. I was like, maybe I'll just get my B.Ed, you know, teach dance at an art school. I would have loved it, I'm sure. But I was like, also, I should try everything I want to do so that I don't have any regrets. So I would say to people like, do it, pursue dance, try again, fail, and succeed. But if you get to a certain point where you're kind of like, okay, what now?
Yep.
And you feel like you're not progressing, or that like maybe you feel like there's not much else you can do, or if it's like you stop booking or whatever it is, use your fallback plan. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no shame. Like you still got to do what a lot of people in life don't get to do, which is take a risk, you know, and pursue your passion. Not everyone does that. A lot of people settle, like that work 9 to 5, for example, and they don't like their jobs, and you don't want that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm definitely a product of that for sure. Yeah, no, I mean, like part of the reason why I started this is because I couldn't see myself working a desk job anymore.
Yeah,
you know?
I hear you.
And sometimes you have to make, you know, those sacrifices, those risks.
I did it.
And
Yeah.
it's all about taking risks sometimes. On that note, with regards to the fallback, you can also have a fallback plan and still make it work for you, right? So a perfect example of this would be, you know, say you're very passionate about dance, but yet you go to school for business.
Right.
You can use those business skills to actually help you with dance.
Of course.
Right? something simple like opening a studio.
Opening a studio,
is 100%, right? And just also being an artist too, being someone that's well versed in business can also help you
absolutely
tremendously.
Honestly, there's so much business in dance people don't even realize.
Yeah.
You have to, even if you're not a studio owner, if you don't have your own dance company or your own training program or whatever, as an independent artist, there's business involved.
Yeah, you are an entrepreneur.
Yeah, you are. You're your own boss. You have to market yourself. You have to put yourself out there. You have to network. You have to book your own photo shoots, create your own look, change your look, do it again. There's so much that's involved. And I think everyone should maybe do like at least a business course. There's a lot that you'll learn, a lot of useful things that will help you. Honestly, for me, learning all this stuff with the studio, I've now implemented it on my own. So before, I always use my Instagram, for example, for personal things. So just me and my friends, lots of food. And then I was like, oh, I should market myself just as me, as a dancer, as a choreographer. And then I started doing it. I got a ton of followers, which was interesting because I never really cared about that stuff. And then I realized, I was like, okay, I'm doing all of this. I'm taking photo shoots. I'm posting dance videos. But I also needed to post what I was doing, like in terms of dance. I never really used to post any gigs that I was doing, but I recently started doing it. Yeah. And I even made like highlights about it. I haven't filled them all in because I'm pretty bad with it. But you have to do it. People will look at your Instagram to hire you now. Yeah. It's interesting. I've submitted for a few things recently and like they were like, attach your Instagram handle. And I was like, oh. And so I'm like looking back, I'm like, what should I delete?
Yeah. Well, we have, I mean, on the show, we obviously have very conflicting views from several people with regards to that. Right? And I mean, Mark said it first, like in his episode, like people are using Instagram now as your resume. Right?
Completely.
And then you have someone like Pyro who absolutely dislikes something like that because it's another way to get free marketing.
Yeah, right? It is.
Now, one thing that we brought up before we turned on the mics was, and this is something that I hope Instagram does soon, is remove the amount of followers and following.
Yes.
Right. Like I think they've done a great job removing the likes. But I think the next step would be to remove the amount of followers and following. And the reason being is because as artists, I feel like when you remove that, I guess that part of the social media aspect, it gives everyone an even playing field. Right?
Absolutely.
And it gives now people an opportunity who might not have had a voice before, a voice now. Right. Yeah. Yeah. What are your thoughts? What do you think should happen with regards to social media? Because obviously it's a huge part in our lives today, right?
Yeah. Music in the back. But I would think don't boycott Instagram. Don't work against it. There's nothing wrong with using it. And I think you need to use it now to survive.
100%.
Like, I understand the OGs when they're like, this is stupid. Like, I can't believe Instagram is what it is now for us. But it's like, no, the times have changed. And we have to just do it. We might not like it. And we all came from a time, yes, before Instagram. I remember when I had came in, there wasn't Instagram.
It's all word of mouth.
It was all word of mouth. That's how I found OIP through Google. I watched OIP videos on YouTube. There was no such thing. Yeah. And then when I started doing their social media, Instagram got introduced. And it was really beneficial for OIP because Instagram blew up. They got in at the right time. They got like 20,000 followers overnight organically, no bots, no nothing. And they just did it. And it was beneficial. So I think that we should know how to use it. We should try to keep up with the algorithms, although they change all the time and it's really annoying. Like, it's really hard to keep up with. But it's beneficial and there's nothing that it'll do for you other than good things. It'll just put you on a platform. And I think that it should remove following and followers because, unfortunately, I feel like that's become a huge thing. Like, how many followers do you have? And people look at that first if they're going to book you now or if they're going to ask you to teach. And that doesn't necessarily qualify you. So I think that if people were to use it strategically, Instagram, and then we were all on an even playing field, it would be easier to see quality.
Position that you're in right now as a studio owner, what would you say is your mandate being in the position that you're in to help inspire the next generation?
It would definitely be to, first and foremost, I'm all about quality. So bringing back quality training, and I say bringing back because I want to bring it back.
Yeah.
By that I mean I want to bring the people that I had learned from in to continue teaching, because they should be. There's a notion that the OGs are no longer active, but that's not the case. I think that they're just busy and that they're working on their independent projects and they're doing different things, which is great. But yeah, my studio mandate is to just bring back quality training and to do it in the right way. And that is a safe way, an environment that's encouraging, positive, supportive, a family-oriented space that eliminates any politics, eliminates any intimidation. That's another really big thing for me. I don't want a space that isn't safe or isn't comfortable. That's the last thing I want. Yeah.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
5 years from now, I would like to franchise CCD. And I won't say where, but I will say that it's not in the States. There's a whole world to see. So I'm going to go out there. I'd also probably be looking to relocate temporarily, probably do some more training abroad. I've gone to New York back and forth for years now.
Nice.
I built some great connects there. I flew out Shirlene Quigley here when we opened, for example. So I'd like to go and really put myself full force in New York, because I did well anytime I was out there, and I'd like to see where that would take me, and then also go abroad outside of the States. But yeah, and just kind of explore and network, and remember that I still am an artist and a dancer first before any of these other things. But I'd like to just keep, mostly building the industry here as well. So I know it's a lot and I'm kind of jumping around, but I feel like I can do everything that I want to do. So these are all the things I want to push for here in Toronto and Mississauga and the GTA, and, provide a lot for this next generation coming up, and kind of hopefully spark some positive change to our industry here, and then also accomplish certain things I have for myself.
Nice. If you could give your younger self any advice, what would it be?
To not let words affect you as much as they did. I mean, it's easier said than done, but I think a lot of what hindered me was people's words and what they said to me, and it was hard. I had a really rough go, like I said, and I ended up ducking out at around 2015. So between 2015 and 2017, a lot changed. And so I feel like my reintegration into the scene was through City Center. So I always think, not that I regret ducking out, because I had reasons and I had like my mental health to deal with, but I think that I always wonder what would it have been like had that not happened, or had I just like given myself a thicker skin and pushed through it, like what would I have accomplished? But also I think everything happens for a reason, and I'm meant where I am to be. Yeah.
That's awesome. Hot topics. First one I do want to talk about is that it could cost up to $28 now to take a drop-in class in Toronto. So I do want to get your opinion, because obviously you're a studio owner, and I'm sure you'll offer a completely different insight to our last week's episode with Anisha, who talks about the artist perspective.
Right.
But as a studio owner, to charge $28 for a drop-in, what thoughts do you have on that?
Well, I think it's good that you asked me, because I am both artist and studio owner. So, and now I know the back end of a studio, so I know whether that's right or not.
Yeah.
And I personally don't feel it's right or necessary. I came from a time where drop-ins were $15 and master classes were $20. So to pay $28 for a drop-in class from certain teachers, I feel like, no. I feel like, how can you afford that? I guess that studios are looking at recreational people and people who work 9 to 5s, and sure, they can afford that. But are other artists looking to train and take class? Absolutely not. You can probably take one class a month if that's the price. I don't think it should be that much. I feel like it should be no more than 15 or 17. at most, which is what we do. We do 17 per class, which is significantly lower than that. And even still, our class cards are way discounted. Like if you get our class cards, it's like 13 or 12 bucks a class.
Yeah.
So, and there's still a way to get by. We're still open, and we've done that since we opened. So I think it stems from like, I guess, just wanting more money. And I understand, yes, the business needs to make money to stay open and to operate, because there's no business that you pay more expenses than what you bring in, because you'd close down.
100%.
That's the reality.
Yeah.
But there's still a way to make more money while having fair prices. And then I think if you are going to raise your prices, your teacher rates have to go up like 1,000%. Because it's like, where's that money going then? Especially if it's like something where you're not in trouble. Then that's a great question to ask. Like, where's that going? And why did that happen? So for me, I don't think I would ever raise it to that much. I don't think I'd raise it even to 20. I don't see the need for it. I know what it takes to get by. There's other avenues to make your money, and that isn't one of them. So I feel like, you know, most classes should be 15 or 17 for dancers, because the reality is that we're like working part-time and then taking class, you know?
Yeah.
And that's all we can do if we're pursuing dance. And, you know, there's not a lot of income coming in, but we want to train. So you have to make it accessible. Like, training is no longer accessible, I feel, if that's the case.
Counter argument.
Okay.
So I think, well, some studios in Toronto, I mean, they have, like you said, great options for discounted, you know, I guess group packages or like class packages. But some have followed this model of memberships, right? Which is a, I guess, way to get recurring income.
Right.
Now, I mean, there are obviously pros and cons to that. So, you know, some might argue that, you know, the reason why the class prices are raising is because, you know, you might want to attract memberships, which I completely understand.
Okay, I get that.
But I think, you know, when it comes to a single class rate for, you know, a studio to charge that much, I think it does hinder a lot of people from going, especially those who don't take class often, right? And I think we're talking specifically about the professional market.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and obviously there are options for them to get discounts and whatnot. Like, you know, some studios offer like a professional rate and whatnot. Right. But sometimes they might not even be aware that that option is even available to them.
Right.
Right. So, yeah, $20 steep.
It's very steep. And yeah, a good point you brought up. I think there should be different rates for people, you know, who are union or part of a company or something, because that's also that's an incentive for them to get to class, and then B, you're getting more revenue that way. So there's other ways to do it. I just don't think $28 is the way.
Yeah. Okay, so I do want to add on your point about I guess the drop in classes raising to that amount.
Okay.
Let's talk about the effects it has on the market itself, right? Like, what if, you know, a studio can obviously get away with charging that amount?
Right.
Do you think other studios would follow suit?
Oh, man.
Right? Because it's something that is proven to work, right?
From a business standpoint, and if you have a business mindset, I could see someone else doing that. Another business person who has no knowledge or no recognition or, you know, appreciation for the artist standpoint of a dance studio, then I think, yeah, they would do it, because why not? They're a business person. That's how business people think. It's all about money for them. The effects that it would have, not so great, because then I feel like maybe everyone would start doing it. I know I would never do that, ever. I would rather close than raise my price. So speaking personally, I wouldn't do that, but I can't speak for other owners. And if they were to do that, I mean, go for it, because it seems to be working and people are supporting that, which is interesting. But I think it would have negative effects, because, okay, then what? Where do you go? How do you train?
Yeah.
Like, you might have to like, it might come to a thing where it's like, do I eat tonight or do I go take class? Like, do I get myself dinner or take class? Because you won't be able to do both. So I think it would have really negative effects. And then people would be training less because it's not affordable to train any longer. And then that goes back to the other effects of not being prepared for auditions or something major. It just wouldn't be good if it happened. I mean, the thing is, I've seen like spin classes, for example. They're like $30, or a boot camp class is $30, which I think is wild.
Well, I think that's the market they're trying to tap into, right? Like,
that's exactly it.
Right? Like boutique fitness.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. Right?
That's what it is. And the, studios that are charging $28 a class, they're very focused on the recreational market. It's like you want to say that the pros are training there, but not really, no. Because A, it's not affordable. And then B, most classes now are like beginner level classes or open level classes that are catering to non-dancers. So they can't afford it. I mean, all of these boutique fitness places have survived for years on these high prices and people are paying for it. So, I mean, what's going to stop the regular person from paying $28? Nothing really, because they're making a salary. They're working 9 to 5. For artists, though, it has a terrible effect. And I really, really wish studio owners would be more considerate when they do certain things and implement things within their business model, because it has an effect on artists that are looking to work and looking to train and looking to grow. And then it also has an effect on your staff, because is their wage increasing? Probably not. So what does that say?
Yeah. Now, another hot topic a few weeks ago was, I guess, the types of questions students or teachers, sorry. So another hot topic weeks ago is, how teachers ask, or how students can ask only certain questions to teachers in class. So some of those things, especially in some of the, like, I guess this happened, this was a question of the week that we brought up 2 weeks ago. And some of those questions were, what song are we dancing to?
Yeah.
Or is it hard?
Is it hard? Yeah. Yeah. I think those questions are okay. I think the people who don't think it's okay, I think that's like an elitist way and an entitled way of thinking. And like, you as a teacher have no right to think that way, because you have to look at it like this. These people who are asking these questions are your students who look up to you as a role model and as an instructor and as a teacher. And you also have to provide them with a service. So I'm sorry, no, you don't get to control what questions they can or cannot ask. It's just not right. And that also, if you do think that way, then what does that say about who you are?
Maybe you're not actually suited for the role you've been chosen.
No, then you're not. I don't think you should be teaching if that's how you think, because then you only want to teach, I guess, people who are in the industry. But even then, I don't think that it should be that way either. And both ends, I don't think it should be that way. I think that these questions are appropriate. They might make someone feel more comfortable during a class, or it just might be stemming from like an anxiety or something that student might have. So you have to be so careful as to your response. I saw people share it in agreement with that saying, and I was like kind of floored by some of the people I saw sharing it. But I just think that you need to reconsider. I want to say that I get it, but I don't. I don't get it. I don't think it's right. And it creates a really bad atmosphere if that's your approach in teaching. Like, imagine going to a class and asking a question and then the teacher being like, you can't ask me that, or that's not okay to ask, or I'm not going to answer that. I would shut down immediately. I'd probably even leave.
Yeah.
And definitely wouldn't come back to that class. So it's just damaging in more ways than one.
And to round off our round of questioning, is there any new and exciting news that you'd like to share?
Yep. So City Center Dance is celebrating our 2-year anniversary of being a drop-in studio in Mississauga. So we're having a free open house. So free classes November 2nd and 3rd. So that's a Saturday and Sunday. So we have a great lineup of our regular staff. So come out, enjoy some free classes. We'll have some raffles, photo booth. I always have like treats like cookies and stuff because that's fun to have.
Nice.
So it'll be really, really fun. And then the second thing is that I started a new showcase called Arcadia. So my thing is looking to bring, a lot of heavy hitters and people you don't necessarily see on stage anymore, to bring them back to the stage, especially with the first one. It's an OGs edition. And my thing is, of course, I advocate for the OGs, but I'm also looking to, really show appreciation for those who paved the way before us, because we wouldn't be where we're at today without them. So the lineup, I can't say what it is, but it's heavy and it's going to be a really wicked show. So I'm excited.
Cool. Keep on the lookout for that showcase. Actually, follow them.
Yeah.
Arcadia.showcase.
Yep.
There we go. Instagram, arcadia.showcase.
Check it out.
Great. Before we wrap up, I just want to read a few of the responses that we got online, because I think everything that has been sent in is a true testament to, obviously what you've done for the community. And so we got a few messages. I'll just read a few. I'm not gonna tag them or anything like that. But so we had one person write in that said, it's not a question, but I love you and all that you do for the dance and performance community here in Mississauga.
Aww.
We had another one saying, I'm a huge fan. I love you. You're my motivation.
Oh my God.
And another one that said, hi, Alex. Okay, so to wrap up, why don't we, why don't you go plug in everything, I guess, plug the studio, where you guys are located, how to get here maybe.
Okay, yeah. So City Center Dance, you can check us out. We are located at Unit 68, 5359 Timberley Boulevard. You can follow us at citycenter_dance. Find us on Facebook. Our website is www.citycenterdance.com. You can find all of our classes here. How to get to the studio. There's a bus right at Matheson and Timberley. There's a bus stop. I don't know what bus to take exactly. I should probably know that as the owner. And then it's right off of the highway. So it's right off of the 401. Also, I think it's 427. Yeah. So it's right off of those two major highways. So it's pretty close. It's more so like borderline Brampton, I'd say. We're really close to the Hershey Center, or Paramount Center, I guess. Well, that's what it's called now.
Cool. Well, that concludes the interview.
Yay.
Thanks again, Alex, for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
To all our listeners, as always, just, leave us a comment. Continue the conversation with Alex. I know we brought up a few topics that haven't been brought on the show yet. So, if you have certain opinions on some of the things that we talked about, make sure to continue the conversation with us either privately or even publicly. Make sure to tag us both. You can find us you can find the Dance Plug Toronto on Instagram at the Dance Plug TO. And my name is Roy, and the host of the Unplugged podcast every week, and we will see you guys next week for a brand new one. Peace.